is Russell Axford. I'm the head of executive search at Clarity Recruitment. Today on Behind the Numbers, I have a good friend, Dyer from Destiny Solutions and Omni Update. Gord, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Gord, I wanted to learn a little bit more about your experience. You've had the hat of the CFO over multiple roles over the years, and I find your background very fascinating. So what is it like being a CFO in a high growth company?
Well, right now I would describe it as ever changing.
Okay.
Depending on the companies I've been with, depending on where we are in the stage of acquiring companies, your role is changing on a day-to-day basis. And that's what attracted me to the companies that I've joined the last few times. And that's what's kept me interested in those companies and where I've been.
Gotcha. And I guess every role is different, but if you look at this role in particular, what do you spend most of your time on in a growing company that has just acquired another organization?
I find that my time's being spent mostly on integration activities.
Okay.
and it's either helping to plan out those integration activities, helping to execute on them. So as an example, we've recently acquired a company in California and are involved in sales synergies. We're involved in cross-selling one another's products. So I'm working with the sales teams and coming up with compensation plans for how we're going to help enable that, how to make sure the sales guys are appropriately trained and educated on each other's products. So I'm getting involved in multiple facets of the organization. On the finance side of the house, you're dealing with stuff like how do you keep getting reporting out on time?
Yeah.
So your day-to-day role has to continue on the side while you're spending a fair amount of your time on the very important integration activities, which obviously follow any kind of purchase.
And from finance, when you say integration activities, what are some of those activities from finance?
Picking an appropriate financial system that is going to help support both sets of organizations, determining reporting cadence both for the internal teams that need to know what's going on within the company, but also with our private equity partner who obviously wants to stay involved in knowing what's going on within the company, the newly acquired company, and how things are looking on a consolidated basis as well.
Okay, and interesting you said private equity. I mean, you've worked with different private equity owned organizations over the past couple of years. What skill sets from your experience would a CFO need to be able to work with a private equity owned organization?
I think it really helps if you're not pigeonholed into one specific aspect of your finance or accounting role. So if you're just a reporting person, if you're just a accounting policies person, I think you'd have a hard time fitting into a smaller organization that's PE backed and acquisitive by nature.
Okay.
I think you have to have a more well-rounded kind of view of all aspects of finance and accounting. So I personally am jumping on a daily basis between reporting issues, tax issues, integration issues, as well as business issues like cross-selling products that I mentioned earlier, like how the products are going to integrate together and helping add value within those teams themselves, because generally the teams are a little bit smaller and therefore need some kind of financial analysis or financial support to whatever kind of analyses they're trying to get done on the side.
Would you say that the expectations are different in a PE-owned organization versus maybe a other owner-managed organization?
I would suggest that what I've found different is maybe the sense of urgency that comes with being with a PE firm that maybe has a stated holding period that they target. If they're targeting a 4-year hold or a 5-year hold, that's the time horizon you have to make the company either transition to what you're supposed to be at exit, or you've got a certain delimited time to actually get all of your processes in place before kind of the next sequence of events happens at the end of the hold period. And so I would describe the PE firms having a little bit more of a sense of urgency to the manner in which all aspects of the company works.
Fair enough. And when you look at growth strategies for an organization, obviously you have organic or inorganic growth. At what point have you seen, from your experience in technology, then you would start looking at M&A activity to help you guys get to the next level versus buckling down and looking at your core competencies and just trying to grow naturally? What themes have you seen in that realm?
I think a lot of the work that we've done is very much around the buy versus build decision. If you've got a very strong development team, they can help develop any kind of add-on to your existing product. I'm specifically talking here about the software and technology space where I spend a fair amount of my time. You've got a bunch of very smart people who can develop and extend your product in whatever direction you want to go. You've really got to help work to try to prioritize what you want your core team to be spending their time on and where it makes more sense to go and buy out and market and kind of bolt onto the side. And so a lot of our analysis is really based on how long would it take our product to look like this, what would the product roadmap look like, and how do we go about accelerating it? And as soon as you start going down that thought process, the most obvious way to accelerate is through acquisition. If there's a known product where you could work to kind of bolt onto the side, if only you own them, then that tends to start the discussion as to what are the potential target companies that would make obvious sense to look at from an M&A perspective.
When you look at the concept of leadership as a CFO, when you're going through M&A activity, the concept of leadership, how important is that from the CFO when you're managing this activity?
Yeah, I think because the CFO tends to have a pretty good view of all aspects of the organization. And you're looked upon as being a business partner by all of the other members of the management team. I think a critical aspect is getting involved with all areas. It's very easy to bury yourself in the reporting and the tax and the financial nature of the role, but I think it's really critical to stay involved in all aspects of the company and to demonstrate your obvious knowledge in all aspects of the company.
Yeah, okay. And so obviously you've spent a lot of time within tech organizations, CFO of LexisNexis, CFO of Tenzing, now CFO of Destiny Solutions. What are some of the key learnings you've learned over the years as CFO in high growth tech or SaaS organizations?
I think personally, one of the lessons that I learned, obviously a few years ago, is the necessity to prioritize.
Okay.
I think a lot of roles come with that these days. I think if you're a CFO of a company that has been acquiring others, you really have to figure out where you want to be spending your time and where that adds the most value to the company. The to-do list, the task list is going to be there every single day.
Yeah.
The key part is trying to figure out how you're going to drive the value of the business go forward and what needs to be addressed now, what needs to be addressed later, and quite frankly, what can be addressed by bringing on third-party help. So you've got to figure out personally where you can add value and then figure out where it makes sense to bring on other people to help if not lessen the burden on the finance team, get stuff done faster than you would normally with your existing team.
Yeah.
And it's not something that can be done once as part of an acquisition. It's got to be done kind of repeatedly over almost on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, trying to figure out where does it make sense to start spending your time. And it's hard to get into that mindset, and so you've actually got to carve out time to actually do it properly to make sure that you're spending your time wisely.
There's obviously an opportunity cost with your time and what you could be spending it on, and I think that's great where you learn to understand, okay, what are my main objectives, how do I prioritize? From your opinion, you come in as a CFO, and most of the times, it's CFO plus in terms of your duties. What would you say is the most important number 2 hire under the CFO in a growth company to allow you to focus on the tasks that you need to be focused on?
I actually think it's on the FP&A side of the house.
Okay.
I think, especially with dealing with PE firms where there's such value being put on analytics and metrics tracking and analyses of all aspects of the company, that usually there is not an embedded resource within those teams because the teams tend to be on the smaller side of things. And so having a very strong FP&A resource who can add value to multiple aspects of the company, that's where you get the big bang for the buck in terms of a company that's in that growth phase.
That's a great learning. Normally I've seen it be the controller to free up the CFO to do that, so I learned something today. That's really cool. When you look at the need for having proper processes and systems, I imagine that can get quite messy when you're just bought a company and you're trying to integrate. Can you walk me through a little bit of your thought process around how you select a certain tool for the business needs?
Well, I mean, there's the classic, you go through a discovery phase, figure out which tools are being used now. I've tended to ask the finance and accounting teams of companies we've acquired, what does the tool do for you now? What are we missing? What's a nice to have? What's a must have? And then you start going down that path and trying to figure out how to get as close a match as possible between your current company, the acquired company, and always with a mindset of, okay, there might be another acquired company 6 months down the road and 9 months down the road. And that third one is the trickier aspect of it all. You're not just trying to set up systems and processes for the way you look today. You're trying to set things up so that you can scale appropriately downstream, and therefore be able to take on yet another company in the near future. So that's the mindset you actually have to be in when you're kind of looking at various tools.
Fair enough. Gord, I appreciate you coming today to teach us a little bit about inorganic growth and the role of the CFO.
My pleasure. It's great seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.